Visiting the scene of the crime, joining The View yesterday and opening up about her 2024 presidential election loss. Watch this.
I grieved in a way that I have not since my mother died. It was not at all about losing a race. I knew what it was going to mean for the country. There are many factors, I think, that played into the outcome of that election. But I think probably one of the biggest in my mind is we just didn't have enough time.
You didn't have enough time.
Independent journalist Evita Duffy-Alfonso joins me now. Evita, whether it's one more day, like my esteemed co-anchor Carly Shimkus said, or another 107 days, would more time have won Kamala Harris the presidential election?
Well, the answer is no. And the thing about this interview she did is there's never an acknowledgement of the fact that she never should have been in that position in the first place. Do you guys remember how astroturfed her entire campaign was? Brat Girl Summer. She's paying millions for these collabs with Beyonce and Oprah Winfrey. She's going on the Call Her Daddy Sex podcast. And then when she has an opportunity to do a real sit-down interview with Joe Rogan, she says no. She says no because she was fake and she was phony, and so was her nomination. She never should have been in that position because there should have been a real primary, and the Democratic voter should have been able to choose who they actually wanted to represent them. It was horrendous. And I'll say this also. There's a lot of new polling coming out about Gen Z. If you look at Pew Research between 2023 and 2025, they're saying Gen Z males swung 44 points to the right. Gen Z women, it's 14 points. I don't think that is unrelated to what the Democrats did with Kamala Harris. She was astroturfed, she was phony, and young people are interested in populism and people who are actually representing them and the people running the party. And that's what MAGA is, and it's the complete opposite of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris is the greatest example of that.
I think you're right about that. I also want to talk about this part of the interview. She also said she didn't realize that her answer that she gave on The View in October, that she wouldn't have done anything different from Joe Biden. She said, in her words, she did not realize that was such a hand grenade. Evita, what does that say about her self-awareness, that she did not realize that was a mistake when literally every American, left and right, realized it was a mistake?
Oh, of course it was a mistake. And this is the crazy thing. And even during this interview, she kept trying to straddle between, I support Joe Biden, he could have still been the president, but also he's not fit to run. Well, if he's not fit to run, Kamala, he's not fit to be the president of the United States. If you are going to be his vice president and you're going to stand by his policies, then you're going to have to defend them as you're running to replace him. The whole thing, I think, really exemplified how she was not prepared for this role.
I think you're right.
She's not smart enough, I think, to be in the position that she's in.
Before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on this. Google announcing it will reinstate YouTube channels that were permanently banned over content related to COVID-19. The company saying it was pressed by the Biden administration to remove content that did not violate YouTube's own policies. Evita, another right-wing conspiracy that turned out to be 100% true. Final thoughts to you.
Well, listen, I'll just say this. I was censored on YouTube as well. When I worked for The Federalist, their account was deboosted by YouTube, so none of my videos were going anywhere, and there was a reason for that. We had an insider at YouTube confirm this for us. A lot of conservatives were censored for just telling the truth in this platform, and so that we're seeing a change, and they're actually going to let some real creators with some alternate perspectives to share their ideas on YouTube. Makes my heart sing because it was dystopian under Joe Biden. The president of the United States was booted off of all social media platforms. You had the director of CISA, which is an underling of DHS, say her job is to defend our cognitive infrastructure, meaning the minds of the American people. It was George Orwell, 1984, come to life, and I'm glad that finally we're seeing a difference. And the only reason this is happening is because of a Trump admin. Had we had a Kamala 2.0, a Biden 2.0 with Kamala, we would have continued to see the kind of censorship and dystopian attacks on the First Amendment.
Evita Duffy-Alfonso, thank you for getting up with us. We appreciate it.
So Kamala Harris has this book out. I have to tell you, I downloaded it. So because we're going to be talking about this for so long.
It's a soap opera.
No, I'm going to read it too.
But the thing that's so amazing,
I've read a lot of excerpts. She
Right.
blames everybody.
Like, I understand that sometimes you have weaknesses as a candidate, like, oh, I'm not great on the economy, McCain said. Oh, you know, domestically, I don't really have that much experience internationally. I understand that. But Kamala Harris is even struggling explaining her own book.
Right.
So that to me is either you didn't write it, but she did, because it sounds like her.
It's juicy.
Right? And it's stuff that we didn't know. And she's almost shocked when we bring up the controversy, when it's brought up, the controversial
Well,
stuff.
she went back on The View, and that kind of was doomsday for her back in the campaign, back last October, when Sonny Hostin was asking her, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? And she said, not a thing comes to mind. So she talked about her book. She talked about her lost election on The View yesterday. Watch.
There are many factors, I think, that played into the outcome of that election. But I think probably one of the biggest in my mind is we just didn't have enough time.
You didn't have enough
time. We didn't have enough time.
You know what's wrong with that statement? As Rahm Emanuel pointed out, that she did have time. Joe Biden was down by 7 or 8. When she came in within a few weeks, she was up on Trump on 3. But the more people got to know her, the worse she did. Very similar to when she ran for the nomination,
What do you
remember?
mean, I don't have enough time? She was vice president for 4 years.
True.
She had time. She had 4 years, plus that extra 107 days.
I'm not sure more time would have done anything. It would have made it worse. The more people got to know her, the worse she did in the poll.
Word salad.
I mean,
it's just, this is not the role for her.
Can you imagine not winning any of the swing states? I mean, just give me one.
That's true.
Just win one.
Yeah.
But she talked about the decision on the vice president, too.
She did. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's go back to that infamous moment when she was on The View and Sonny asked her that question. And we're going to play that first for you, and then we're going to play what she said yesterday about that moment.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind. That day in that interview, for me, really was symbolic of the issue, which is that I'm a loyal person. And I didn't fully appreciate how much people wanted to know there was a difference between me and President Biden. I thought it was obvious. And I didn't want to offer a difference in a way that would be received or suggested to be a criticism. And I realize now that I didn't fully appreciate that how much of an issue it was.
One thing that annoys me about her is the lack of accountability for herself. And then she takes so long to answer such a simple question. Such a simple question. I should have answered the question. That was an error on my part. I knew what the difference was, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to offend the president.
She said in the middle of that show, during the commercial break, her team passed her a note and said, let's circle back on that question, please, and mention that the big difference between Kamala and Joe Biden would be that I would put a Republican in my cabinet.
That would, by the way, terrible staffer. If that is your, if that's your crisis management,
right.
If that's your crisis management, so you'll get like Adam Kinzinger and make him, I don't know, Secretary of Treasury or something, and that's going to change everything. We'll have Liz Cheney as your Secretary of State. But by the way, so that's the terrible team around her, and she said she knew that that was a moment that was problematic. But they said it was not something that they didn't go over. So every Democrat is so upset that we're talking about 2024, but they can't blame James Comer and the AutoPen investigation. They can blame Kamala and her book tour. Rahm Emanuel, who's desperate to be the nominee next time, said this.
To not appreciate that the question of, given that the people thought at that time that the country was headed, 70% thought it was headed in the wrong direction, they wanted to see a change, is to totally misread where the American people were. And that I'm a little shocked at, to be honest. And that was not a trick question. That wasn't a pop quiz. And to say that you don't get it, you don't appreciate it, means you didn't understand where the election was or one of the major fault lines of the election was. People wanted a change, and you could have been that.
So she later writes in the book, this is about the debate, the vice presidential debate. When Tim fell for it and started nodding and smiling at JD's fake bipartisanship, I moaned to Doug, what is happening? I told the television screen, you're not there to make friends with the guy who's attacking your running mate.
Again, it's about her, right?
He had fretted from the outset that he wasn't a good debater. I discounted his concern. He was so quickly pity in front of the crowd at our rallies. I thought he'd bring those qualities to the podium. Wow.
So,
I mean, just terrible.
She brings up, yeah, he told him. That's one thing he says, I'm a terrible debater.
Yeah.
So, by the way, that's the worst thing to say during a job interview. I need you to win one debate and win an election. Not a really good
we
debater.
thought it was self-deprecation. Even us, we thought it was something like political strategy, but it was really true.
Right. He was so nervous. And when he came out and called himself a knucklehead, I just said, this couldn't get any worse. He was
that before the spirit fingers, or was that after he kicked the air?
Well, yeah, this is after. So this is his October 1st. Well, look at his face. He's such an embarrassment. But that also is her decision. Yeah. She made one of the first decisions you make is a running mate.
Good point.
Trump made two good ones. Really, two really good running mate pictures. That's hers.
She said on choosing Tim Walz, she said her senior staff strongly favored Tim and that her godson, along with her sister and brother-in-law, also preferred Walz. She said, Doug and I went back and forth. We had known Josh longer and leaned that way. It was always going to have to be my decision. I told my staff and my family I didn't want any more input, and I went to do something practical. So I made a tasty rub and seasoned a pork roast, and by the time I went to bed, I had decided on Walz. Here's the thing. Look, she had a big job in California. She went on to become a senator. I'm sure she's very smart. She went to law school, all of that. But when you're running for president of the United States, you have to be the best of the best. And there were so many word salads. She couldn't get through these debates. Tim Walz couldn't either. You have to be the best representation of the United States of America. You have to be brilliant. You have to think through these questions. When Sunny Hostin's asking her that question, you have to be able to think on the spot, how is this going to play out in the election? I need to give a very solid and truthful answer. And instead she now says that she saw these things in Joe Biden, but she didn't at the time. So she was lying to the American public. And we all saw through that. And we knew that something was wrong with Joe Biden. We knew they were covering it up. So it just put doubt in the American voter. So when you're running for that election, I'm not saying that I'm not discounting her intelligence and being a woman and all that. I'm proud of her for that. However, you have to be the best of the best, and you have to be able to think quickly when you're the president. Look what Donald Trump does. He knows. He already knows in advance how this is going to be portrayed. So I wish her all the best, but she blames everybody. I mean, she blames Tim Walz for his performance on the debate stage. Like you said, she chose him. She blames Joe Biden for not giving her enough credit for his staffers. In the book, she blames the staffers for not building her up enough, not putting her on the center stage.
She has the job.
But she was the vice president. Exactly.
I know no one believes me and agrees with me, and that's fine. I definitely think this is her book to run on.
I agree. I do agree with you.
Everyone tells
she's going to run again.
She's running. She has nothing else to do.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.